Hey, how's it going, everybody? It's Terrence here with fishnetproductions.com, coming to you guys with a second video in the series that I'm doing on the process of mixing, where I take you guys through the whole entire process of mixing a song from beginning to end. Now, in the first video, we dealt with workflow, balance, and gain staging, very primary concepts that get you started in the right direction when you're mixing. So be sure to go check out that video, and I'll leave a link in this one so you can go check it out, and that'll get you up to speed on where we are today. But in today's video, we're going to be talking about reference mixes, panning, and mixing in mono. So let's jump right in. Now, just a couple of tips for you guys on choosing your reference tracks. What I generally like to do is choose reference tracks that are in the same musical genre as the song in which I'm mixing. So for an example, the song that we're mixing here is considered sort of a pop style song. It's mostly in the pop style genre. So what I've done is I've chosen 3 reference tracks here to reference that to. And the tracks are, this is the song Feeling Myself by Nicki Minaj and Beyonce. And the second track is the Meghan Trainor track, All About That Bass. And the third track is Shake It Off by Taylor Swift. Very, very popular songs here in the U.S. I'm not sure where you are listening to this, but in the U.S., these are 3 very, very popular songs. Now, another tip on choosing your reference songs, and this one is a little bit harder, but choosing songs that are in the same key as the song that you're mixing. Now, what this does, it just creates a more pleasant listening experience when you're going back and forth between your reference mix and your mix. And sometimes you can be fooled by tonalities from key changes. So, and the musicians can attest to this that are listening to this. If you're, say, playing a song or listening to a song rather in the key of C major, and then your reference track is in some key like F sharp major or something like that, then you have this weird augmented fourth key change, tonality change that's going on between your mixes. And sometimes you can be fooled by that tonality, just in the same way that you can be fooled by volume when it comes to things like that. So that's just another quick tip for you. So what we're going to do here is I'm going to start this track to playing, and what we're going to do is I'm going to flip all 3 of these tracks on and off in reference to this mix, and what we're going to do is just listen to the differences between this. Now, here's the key. What we're going to be doing is listening to just the overall balance and mix of the song, the overall brightness and darkness, things like width, are things panned out wide, are they narrow? The apparent volume levels, are the vocals up front, or are they sitting back a little bit more? Are the drums strong, or are they sitting back? Things like that. I think that's one of the key things that you do when you're listening to reference mixes. And it's a place where a lot of people make mistakes at, because they generally go in and say, hey, I want my kick drum or my vocal or something to sound exactly like this. And then, they find themselves running into trouble because the way that vocal sounds is relative to the rest of the track. So what you really want to find out is what's contributing to the entire sound of the track as it compares to ours. So listen to those things again: the overall brightness, the overall darkness, apparent volume levels, are things out front, are they sitting back, are they wide, are they narrow, things like that. And that'll give us some direction on where to go with our mix. Okay, so here we go.
But you be really taking that pipe. I say, yes, daddy, I do. Give me brain like NYU. I said, teach me, nigga, teach me. All this learning here is by you.
Okay, so now that we've done that, the next step in our process is really just to take some notes, jot down in your notepads or on a sheet of paper. Thank God here in Cubase we have this notepad feature where we can kind of jot some notes down on anything. But you can jot some notes down as your reference, and that'll keep you on task on what you're doing in your mixes. So some things that I heard is this particular song, the first song, the Nicki Minaj song and Beyonce song, it's a little bit darker, not too much darker, but it's a little darker than our song. The vocals are really sitting out front. They're really dry. That's really common in this kind of sort of rap kind of pop thing that's going on. It's really common in that kind of music. So the vocals are sitting out front. I do like that out front, and that's kind of common with Beyonce's vocals when she records stuff anyway. With the All About That Bass song, the Meghan Trainor, it has a little bit more reverb and a little bit more space out the mix. It's a little bit wider. I heard some things all the way out to the left and all the way out to the right. And her voice, again, is sitting directly there in the middle. It has, sounds like it may have some mono verb or something, or at least some very narrow reverb or something on her voice in the center. But it does sound good, and her vocal is still sitting out front. Now, on the Taylor Swift song, this mix is a little bit more entailed than the other ones. During the chorus, it has a lot of stuff going on. It's a little bit harder to tell what's happening in that mix, but I do hear the vocals being out front and stuff like that. I think this is probably the brighter mix out of the three, and it's definitely a little bit brighter than ours. Again, not too much. It's not just overly bright or anything like that, or brighter than ours, really. But that's, again, something we want to go for. Now, another tip that I'll give you guys, if you guys are using virtual instruments and stuff like that to make your tracks, if you're recording your own music and not just mixing it, you're recording it, what happens a lot of times is those virtual instruments, they have a really hyped up high end to them. And I've noticed that recently because I use a lot of virtual instruments myself. I've noticed that they have a lot of hyped up high end. So when you record a track and you just leave them raw or something like that, and you reference them to something on the radio, you'll hear that your track is significantly brighter than a lot of stuff that's being played on the radio. So again, that's a tip that I'll just throw out there to you guys if you're doing stuff like that, or if you're receiving tracks that are recorded with virtual instruments. It's just something that I've noticed. So now that we have some aim, I know what I definitely want to do. I know I want to, one thing that was common with all three of the reference tracks, again, that the vocals were really out front. That's something that's really common in pop music. So I'll keep the vocals out front. The drums are really strong in all three of them because that's something that drives pop music now as well. So I'll keep the drums really strong, drums and bass as well. I'll pan some things out wide. I generally like wider mixes, so I'll pan some things out wide. And then there's a lot of things in this mix too that are happening, but not a lot of stuff that's happening at the same time. So we kind of have some space to do some things like that with. So that's what we'll be going for in this mix. I'll try to keep it, the timbre, or somewhere around a little bit brighter maybe than this Nicki Minaj track, but not as bright as the Taylor Swift track. Somewhere maybe around the same brightness as the Meghan Trainor track, and we're already not too far off, so I know I don't have to do a lot of boosting or anything up in the high frequencies. Okay, so let's now have a look at our panning. Now, there are a lot of panning rules and stuff out there that I'm sure you guys have heard about. You've heard about the LCR panning and all of that kind of stuff, and all of that's great. I generally only follow a couple of rules in my panning, and I'll share those with you guys. The only thing that I truly try to follow is that I try to keep my low frequency instruments toward the center of the mix. There's just something about low frequency instruments that sit well better toward the center or in the center, and that they sound better coming out of both speakers than, one speaker. That's a general reason why we keep a kick drum and bass guitar and stuff like that in the center of a mix, because it just sounds more powerful and sounds more authentic when it's done that way. And the opposite of that is, again, I try to pan the higher frequency instruments a little bit further out, and the higher the instrument, the frequency of the instrument, the more I pan it out. Now, the second thing that really drives how I pan something is how many elements we have in a mix that are playing at the same time. Now, in this particular track, we have a lot of instruments. We have over 50 tracks playing in this song. So I'm going to be probably very sparse with my panning, although a lot of the instruments aren't playing at the same time. And a lot of the tracks, like the ones you see here, like these kick drums, these are all going to be panned up to the center, and they're going to serve as kind of like one track anyway. And you'll see that when I get ready to pan them. So we sort of have a large mix and a sparse mix sort of at the same time, sort of like this amalgamation of the two. So let me go ahead and jump in and start panning these tracks. As you can see here right now, I have everything up the center. These are all of the tracks, and they're panned to the center. There are some stereo tracks in here, which is why you'll hear some stereo information coming out. I think there are a couple of those vocals and stuff like that are already stereo tracks. They were recorded that way. So I kind of want to leave them that way. I don't want to mess with them, although I can go in and add some stereo plugins and stuff on them and try to manipulate the stereo bring them down to mono a little bit more and stuff like that. But generally speaking, I think when people record stuff like that in stereo, they probably want to keep it. So I'm not going to mess with that too much, but I'm going to pan everything else around it. And I'm going to start here with my drums. That's generally where I like to start, with my drums and percussion, especially in a pop song where the drums and bass kind of drive the track. So I'm probably going to give those the most attention in this track, starting off with panning anyway. So I'm just going to start playing this track. Let me loop it back from the beginning, and I'll just start playing it, and we'll go from there. All right, here we go. Now, let's talk about why I did certain moves. Again, very self-explanatory. Kick drum is up the center. These two clap tracks here, or these four clap tracks rather, these four here, are pretty much one clap track, or they're going to serve as one. They're off playing each other. This one plays at one time, this one plays the second time. So I think what they are just like different clap samples to kind of give some difference between this one and this one. So I've basically kept these at the center, but since they're two stereo tracks, I panned them out just slightly off center, so you have that phantom center that it'll create once it's being played. So it'll still sound like it's in the center, but sounded like it's a little bit wider too. And also that'll give just a little bit of room for that kick drum to be in the center. Conga, again, it's a sort of mid frequency instrument, so I panned it out. I panned it out with this one because it's also playing off this tabla here. So they're kind of playing off each other, so I pan them left and right. They're kind of almost the same frequency. Same thing here with like the cymbal crash, this thing here, the cowbell, the cymbal hit, the go-go, I said that one already. These two tracks here are stereo tracks, so this is like a top and a bottom hit. So what they are, I just kind of panned them out. This kind of gives me a little stereo spectrum on the drums. Same thing here in this overhead track here. Kind of gives me some stereo on the drums. What's only thing that's being played here is like, I think somebody's hands are on the snare drum. So you're getting that in there, and you get a little bit of this kick drum that's going through there too on like this D112 mic and the SM57. So that gives me a stereo spectrum for my drum, and I just pan those all the way out wide, again, because I want my drums to sound really, really big in this mix, because I'm going to give them a lot of attention, because again, it's a pop song. So that's why I made a lot of the choices that I made on panning this. So what I'm going to do is just really quickly, I'm going to go through the rest of the song and make some quick panning choices. And again, we may not stick with these once we get everything playing. Something may be in the way of something else, and we'll see. But I'm just going to go through this really, really quickly and make some really, really quick panning decisions. So let me unsolo actually all of these, and I'll just go through the rest of the track. So here we go.
Papillote pour toi. Elle est charmante, elle aime le cinéma, séduisante. Et puis qu'elle meurt, elle veut encore mouche qui colle dans tes cheveux, rayon quand elle te voit sûrement. Un jour tu verras la mouche qui saute sur ta pommette, sa silhouette d'argent vivole le vent. Toi tu vois rien, tu es bête, tu ignores ta mouchette. Elle se tient, tu la tiens par la barbichette. Incroyable, petite mouche espion sur ta table, cachée derrière un gros mélo, impatiente. Elle veut faire des bébés en prudente. Et puis qu'elle meurt, elle veut encore mouche qui colle dans tes cheveux, rayon quand elle te voit sûrement. Un jour tu verras la mouche qui saute sur ta pommette, sa silhouette d'argent vivole le vent. Mais toi tu vois rien, tu es bête, tu ignores ta mouchette. Elle se tient, tu la tiens par ta barbichette. De bête, tu ignores ta mouchette. Le premier qui rira aura une tapette. Toi tu vois rien, tu es bête, tu ignores ta mouchette. Elle se tient, tu la tiens par ta barbichette. De bête, tu ignores ta mouchette. Le premier qui rira aura une tapette. De bête, tu ignores ta mouchette.
Okay, guys, that's it. Just made some really, really quick panning decisions. A couple of things that I did were the guitars. I panned those out. These two guitars here, this is one guitar track, stereo channel left and right. Same thing here. This is another one left and right. These are playing at opposite times, but they're almost kind of playing the same role. So I kind of wanted to create the panning almost really similar, but just move them off each other. See, this is 75 and this is at 60. Just a little bit off each other, so they kind of play off each other a little bit, but they're kind of serving the same purpose in the track. So that's why I kind of kept them really, really close together. The other stuff, the vocals, again, is self-explanatory. The stereo files here of the vocals that I didn't mess with, again, because they already have the stereo information in it. That means they're already panned the way they are. So I don't want to mess with those. Some of the other ones, the mono ones here, is I kind of kept them toward the center, or at least closer to the center than a lot of the other elements in the mix. I panned these guitars and stuff out pretty far. So I kept those toward the center just because I like the vocals to be kind of centered again in the mix. And I may pan those out a little bit further, just depending on how that lead vocal plays off of it. And of course, I kept these lead vocal tracks dead in the center. I didn't even mess with any of these. These are lead vocal tracks that are kind of playing off each other, different takes and stuff, or harmonies that will be in the center. So I didn't mess with those at all. And guys, panning is really as simple as that. And you kind of see now we have sort of a stereo track going on already. So we're already in good shape. Our panning is really good. Our balance is pretty much where we want it. The workflow is set up. Our reference mixes are set up, and we're ready to start doing some other stuff here in the mix. So the final thing we'll talk about in this video again is mixing in mono. Now, there are several ways to do this. What you can do is, what I like to do is, and here's a little plugin for you guys, a plugin tip for you guys. There's a free plugin out there that I like to use. It's called Panipulator, and you can get it for free. I forgot, I've had it for so long, I forgot where I downloaded it from. But if you guys are looking for a really good plugin, this is a free plugin. You can go just Google search this name. You can pick that up, and all you have to do is flip this switch on mono. Now your mix is in mono, and you can start mixing in mono. Now, a couple of things about mixing in mono that I want you guys to be careful of. I do mix in mono quite a bit. I'm a big fan of mixing in mono, but there's a danger to it as well. You can easily get fooled by the opening up of a mix once you've been mixing here in mono. And if you've mixed in mono before, you know exactly what I'm talking about, where you mix in mono for an extended period of time, and then you do some EQ and some stuff and some compression and all of that stuff, and then you turn this mono switch off and you play your mix, and all of a sudden it sounds like heaven is opened up and you have this big wide mix and stuff going on. And what happens is that can fool you quite a bit, and it may give you the sense of that there's a lot of separation and stuff going on in your mix when there's really not. And then you pull it up the next day, and then all of a sudden you hear some frequency clashes and stuff like that. Now, again, that's not to say that mixing in mono is bad. Again, I do it quite a bit, and I actually highly recommend it. The benefit of it is that you get all of your stuff right on top of each other. All of your tracks, they're dead in the center of the mix. So if you can use EQ and compression to get them separated right there while they're in the center of the mix, and you can hear the nuances and stuff of each instrument while they're sitting right there on top of each other, it just opens up a whole lot more when you open up the panning, when you turn that mono switch off, and then everything is heard, everything is clear, because not only now are they separated in frequency, they're separated in space, in the space of the mix. So be really careful of that, and that's what mixing in mono can do. Now, I'll wrap this video up here. In the next video, we're going to jump in and start getting right into the nitty-gritty of mixing this thing. We're going to throw some plugins on here. We're going to talk about which plugins to use. I have a very objective means of picking my plugins to use on particular mixes, and I'll show you guys that in the next video. So we'll jump right in with doing that. Listen, as usual, if you have not subscribed to the channel, make sure you go do that right now. Hit that subscribe button right there in the lower right hand corner of the video and subscribe to the channel. These videos are going to be coming out really soon, so I want you guys to get them and not miss them. There's a lot of other videos on my channel and everything to help you guys out with some tips if you're looking for tips for mixing and stuff like that. A lot of great content on the channel already, so make sure you go check those videos out. And again, hit that subscribe button, and I'll see you guys in the next video.